Here we are ready to start the second edition of Food for Earth, our 24-hour marathon that we are organizing as Future Food Institute together with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, Cristina Petracchi, the leader of the e-learning academy, to celebrate the Earth. Happy birthday, Earth! And I'm super excited today to kickstart from Australia. I'm now in Italy. The rooster still have to welcome the new day, so it's still night here in Italy. And I want to welcome on stage with me a great friend of the food system around the world, who's Paul Newnham, that is now in Australia, in a beautiful place. And let's start this journey. Today, we are going to touch hundreds of voices. We have more than 30 ministers that are going to join this marathon, indigenous community scientists, innovators, farmers, but overall also chefs. And with you, Paul, we need to talk about the power of chefs.
Absolutely. It's so great to be with you, Sarah. And I'm here on a fairly cold day in Melbourne. So it hasn't rained, but I was thinking it's going to be really interesting if the earth starts raining during this session, because I'm outside. I'm on the Yarra River in the center of Melbourne. And so behind me, you can see this is the Yarra River, which is flows through the middle of the city of Melbourne. And just over there is the Central Federation Square, which is like one of the key squares in Melbourne and the main train station. So we're right in the middle of Melbourne on this autumn day in this part of the world, because in the Southern Hemisphere we've been through summer. I know you're coming into summer in Italy, but it's starting to get a bit cooler. We've had our time at the beach, and now it's it's a different season. So it's so exciting to be here as part of this session. And thank you to the FAO and to the Future Food Institute for really celebrating Earth Day in this way by going around the Earth, because the Earth is so full of diversity and it's so important. And we're talking a little bit about chefs. And one of the things that I'm involved in is the Chef's Manifesto. And the Chef's Manifesto is a network of chefs in over 90 countries now that are connected to the Sustainable Development Goals. They're connected to making sure that people and planet are thought about as we go through in what we eat, and creating delicious opportunities that drive change. And so one of the things we're really thinking about is that we really want to get across is the way that we eat, the way we package food, the way that we process food, the way that we grow food, the way that we then eat food can have a major impact on our earth. And so it's really important to think about that. It has an impact on us in our health, but also on our earth. And so this is really, really critical. And the role chefs can play is chefs can really help make that delicious. They can make it accessible. They can educate us. They can help us to understand different ingredients, but how to construct them in amazing ways. So it's super exciting to be with you today.
Thank you so much. So today we want to kickstart this journey really talking also about the paradoxes that we are facing in the food system, but also I think focusing on the different values that we find on food. Because when we talk about food, we talk about culture, we talk about identity, we talk about sociality, we talk about health, of course, but we talk also about environment. So I'm really interested to see from your perspective, so because Paul, he is the leader of an organization within the UN family that is really leading projects focusing on helping and nudging humanity to change diet, to shift our lifestyle, adopting more sustainable and more healthy diet. I want to know from you, what are the programs that you are now working on? Because I know that are great programs now, in process, and also we are all working, being very focused on the Food System Summit, who's really very close now. So tell me more about the Good Food for All project.
Yes, absolutely. So it's super exciting. 2021 is a key year. We've just come out of this, we've got this major challenge around COVID globally. And so there's so many cool things happening now in response to that, to try and think about how do we really emerge from that. And I know it's very different in different parts of the world. There's some places still very struggling in it. And the Food System Summit is a summit which has been convened by the Secretary General to bring together a conversation, to bring together action on the Sustainable Development Goals through looking at the food system. And as a part of that, coming up, we're launching very soon a public engagement campaign titled Good Food for All. And the idea of this is to really gather people to understand the connection between the choices they make around what they eat and the planet. And so that they can make changes and they can be a part of the solutions that really drive change in the way that they choose what they eat, in how they eat, the types of food, and that can have that real impact and can be a part of us really building back better in the next decade on the SDGs. And so the campaign is going to be launching very soon. We're going to be inviting people to share initially a video for less than 1 minute with the hashtag GoodFood4, with the number 4 all, that says, what do you think good food means to you? Because around the world, you're going to find today that everyone has different views on what it means to have good food. And we don't have to have one definition. We can all bring our culture, our stories, our experience, our understanding to this conversation about good food. And so we believe that when we can think about that and we can really drive that forward, together we can raise awareness and we can get more people to take action. And then that can really drive that long-term change. So we're really excited about how this is coming together. It's going to be launching in May, and we're going to be really driving this forward. But this is a sneak peek for you to start to think about and to get people to start to think about sharing. And so if you're thinking today, please feel free to get involved, to share some videos, tag that Good Food for All, tag Earth Day, and really, be able to get that message out around, well, what does good food mean? What does that mean to you as a farmer, as a scientist, as a mother, as a student, as a different experiences?
Yes, thank you so much. And actually, along the way in this very, very long marathon, we're going to hear the voices of some of the chefs that are part of this movement. And we're going to share some, let's say, some pills of this project. So we're really excited to support the initiative, to spread it everywhere, and to involve overall youth in all of that, because
Yes.
we are really working a lot with climate shapers, food shapers, young activists. We see that there is a good energy that can really push this transition that is needed. But also we know that the topic of sustainable diet and adoption at the broader scale is still one of the biggest challenges. One last thing, there is a toolbox, an interesting book that is suggesting which are the foods that we should embrace to face this new kind of diet. And I love this book because I think that one of the other topics is also protecting biodiversity, embracing new kind of foods, and eating more sustainably needs also this kind of approach.
Yeah, so we've partnered and we're just releasing today 10 recipes that are from chefs around the world that swap an ingredient. And so they've based it on the Future 50 Foods, which was brought out a couple of years ago by the World WWF and Unilever and Knorr. And they brought it out to really drive 50 foods that are really important for impacting the planet and people. And these 50 foods are different foods that you can swap with other ingredients that you might traditionally use. And so we're releasing a cookbook at the moment, and hopefully we can drop that into the stream, the link. But this cookbook is really, really designed to help give you some ideas, some inspiration of the swaps you might be able to make with the recipes that you make at home. And so take a look. The chefs talk a little bit about why they chose that. And they talk a little bit about how they did it, and you might get some inspiration for your dinner tonight. And have a look and see if you do it. Please tag me and show me the photo of what you cooked. I'd love to see any recipes that you attempted, and I'm sure the chefs would as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm not sure I can have time to eat tonight because this long marathon of 24 hours is going to be pretty hectic. but for sure I'm gonna check, and I'm gonna ask our food alchemist to cook this kind of dishes and let everyone taste them. Thank you so much, Paul. And let's say follow the marathon, foodforhearth.org, and let's engage even more people, because each time we gather around the table, we're really celebrating our history. We are engaging with our community, and every single bite is connecting us to the future. So being around the table is something that touches everyone, everywhere in the world. So the role that chefs are playing, it's crucial for the health of humanity. So thank you so much for the work you are doing at SDG2 Advocacy Hub and Chef Manifesto. And let's go on and let's invite more friends from Australia.
Absolutely.
So I'm super glad now to engage a new friend who's Sandro De Maio. And now we're going to start talking about another very critical issue connecting not only food for earth, but food for health. This is another important issue, because when we talk about the health of the planet, we talk about the health of humanity. Sandro, welcome.
Ciao, Sara.
It's good to be with you today.
It's good to see you too. Everyone online is going to be so confused. I've got this Italian, we've got two beautiful Italian names, and one of us has a very strong Australian accent. So I sound more like an Aussie than an Italian, but it's wonderful to join you. And I just start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that I'm on here in Australia, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and also just reference the 60,000 years of consistent culture and the intergenerational connection that the original and the first Australians here had with food over so many tens of thousands of years, the deep connection between food, land and health, for which we can learn so much from Australian Aboriginal people.
That's amazing. And this is something pretty interesting. And today, probably we're going to talk about that a lot, because along the way, we're going to also meet indigenous community and try to learn from some of the most basic values, thinking about the golden rule, the topic of reciprocity.
Fantastic.
And this is really something that we think we need to bring back. Because anyway, what we're looking for is really to find the balance between what is good for people, what is good for the planet. And what we are doing now is broadcasting from a place that means so much for us, because we are broadcasting from Pollica, who's the capital of the Mediterranean diet. And just 2 miles away from here, there is
Isn't that amazing?
No, where the Greek philosophers were already studying that 2,500 years ago. So finding the balance between humans and nature. And so I think that this is really something we can learn from these communities.
Absolutely. And I think even as a doctor, Sara, you know, we often, the Mediterranean diet, and I don't just say this as an Italian Australian, but the Mediterranean diet, you know, it is that flexitarian diet. It's thousands of years of learning, of iteration, of seasonality, of a connection to land and to human health and to planetary health that evolved to develop more of a philosophy than a prescriptive diet. And while it's called the Mediterranean diet, I mean, actually, if you go back just a few generations, a very similar pattern of eating was being enjoyed by populations all across the world. And it was a much healthier and more sustainable way of eating. And in fact, you know, often when I speak to patients, you know, I say that if you minus the food insecurity, if we ate like our grandparents did, we'd probably be much healthier today than we are by eating the modern diet that we consume today. It is those it's the historic cultural diets of different places around the world, whether it's the South Asian diet or the Mediterranean diet or the North Asian diet or Middle Eastern diet or indeed North Central South African diet. Many of them were, really plant-rich, seasonal, sparing amounts of animal source proteins when they were available. It was about, fish if you were near the ocean. It was about fresh. And it was about that connection, not just to land and to food, but also through food to other humans. It was about sharing food. It was about the culture and enjoyment, the time and the process of food. And we know that all of these elements now come to 2021. I know as a clinician that all of these things that we've done for generations, that your grandparents and my grandparents did hundreds and thousands of years, that actually, we've done full circle, and the best available evidence really does back what many of those traditional diets look like, and in particular, the flexitarian and modern modified Mediterranean diets. So it's interesting how we've done a full circle almost, and we can. I think we have to have a sense of humility, because we can learn so much from those traditional diets and from Aboriginal diets and those generations and intergenerational knowledge that's locked in those cultures and histories.
Yes, and let's say, talking about the paradoxes of food systems, we know that we have millions of people suffering for disease related to overnutrition, bad nutrition, obesity, diabetes, and many other issues, but still we have millions and millions of people dying for hunger. What do you think is the first step to start to address this issue?
Well, so let's take stock for a second. We live in a world that, in many ways, it's almost hard to get your head around the numbers. We live in a world where about 830 million people wake up hungry every morning, and that number is on the rise once again after decades of going down and down and down. In the last 5-10 years, suddenly it started to go back up again. Hunger worldwide. This is in a world that has never been richer. We've never had so much wealth, so much interconnectedness, so much technology and the level of globalization, and yet hunger is once again on the rise. So about 850 million people wake up hungry every morning. At the same time, about 2.1 billion, that's a B, billion people go to bed overweight or obese every night, struggling to find access and to be able to afford and enjoy high quality, nutritious food. We know that about 1 in 5 young people around the world, 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 young people around the world are hungry for such a long period early in life, that their bodies don't fully develop, that they will never develop intellectually, physically, economically. They will never reach their potential. It's called stunting. We know that there are countries where about 1/3 of children, up to 1 in 3 children, are stunted, lifelong physical, emotional, intellectual impairment because of hunger for such long, protracted periods early in life. And yet about 1/3 of adult women in those same countries are overweight or obese and or anemic, because they're not getting access to sufficient iron, often in the forms of red meat or animal protein. So the scale and complexity of malnutrition worldwide, no country is immune. No population is immune. Even in countries like Australia, 2/3, 2 in 3 Australians are overweight or obese, very similar to America, Mexico. And yet 2/3 of those people who are obese are micronutrient deficient. What we're consuming is calorie dense, nutrient poor, ultra processed, often foods and diets that lead to multiple forms of malnutrition coexisting. So to think as a policymaker like I am, what do I do? What are the actions that we take? I think first is to realize that malnutrition is everyone's challenge. There is no country that is immune from the challenges and scourges of malnutrition. Secondly is that the problem is not getting better in most environments, in most jurisdictions. I would say all jurisdictions around the world, depending on the types of malnutrition, the curves are going in the wrong direction. The third is that COVID has accelerated malnutrition. Obesity has increased, hunger has skyrocketed. The food system has been shaken to its core, and while opportunities exist, massive risks are facing populations around the world in our globalized, commodified and interconnected food system. So, I think the first thing is to acknowledge the scale of the problem. The second is to realize that we are no longer in a world where simply producing more calories is the answer. The third is, I think, really to look strongly at is to understand that these problems are not born and solved in education or in pointing the finger at individuals. The obesity epidemic is not a challenge of laziness or misunderstanding on the part of individuals. This is collective failure by governments to put the appropriate policies and safeguards in place to ensure that the environments we live and work and consume in are safe, where good food is accessible and affordable, and that we're not advertising junk food to children that are 6 months old and starting to form habits before they can even talk to want to consume products that we know are associated with obesity and chronic disease. So it's acknowledging the issue. It's acknowledging that we need to act as a collective, and I think it's government stepping up and implementing clear policies that we now have really good evidence for. And we can go into what some of those policies are, but those responses from governments, and I think the opportunity is now. As we come out of COVID, the opportunity to really understand, in the same way that no one is safe until everyone's safe with COVID, I think it's the same with our food system. It's the same with malnutrition. We have to, no one is safe from malnutrition until everyone is, until we put the safeguards, the population level safeguards in place, until we fix our food system, and until we put the policies in place to not only ensure that everyone, not just the rich, can enjoy a high quality diet and a good quality of life, but that we have a safe and prosperous planet to hand on to future generations through the practices for which we use and Paul covered in our food system.
I completely agree. And so I also think that no one is going to be safe from future pandemics and other kind of issues if we're not going to fix the food system at the global scale.
Absolutely. And we've seen that, Sara. I mean, whether it's the genesis, where the food system is directly linked, the way that we are building a food system on borrowed time and handing the costs to future generations, that modern food system that we have constructed is not only a driver of disease, a driver of climate change, but it's directly related to the genesis of this pandemic. It's shown its vulnerabilities through the pandemic, and I think we've also shown that obesity, for example, 50% increased risk of death from COVID if you are overweight or obese or living with obesity. So it's not only is food so connected to where the pandemic came from and the unsustainable nature of our global food system and biodiversity loss and land conversion and urban sprawl. Not only has it been shaken and shown its fragility because of the COVID epidemic, but I think we've also shown that unless we can fix the malnutrition issue worldwide, populations will continue to be at greater risk from future pandemics. It's linked at every stage.
Yeah, definitely, yes. So we have so much to do. This is the first starting point, to be acknowledged.
You've got 24 hours to work it out.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Sandro. It's been great to start with you in Australia, and I'm sure we're going to reconnect soon. Follow us along the way. We're going to be running all around the world, and let's work together to fix this food system globally.
Awesome. Thanks, Sara. Take care.
Thank you. Ciao.
Grazie.
And now, we have been talking about the first paradoxes, but there is another paradox that drives me completely crazy. We're talking about the issue of food loss and waste. We live in an era where 1/3 of the food globally produced goes wasted, And when we talk about food waste, we're talking about the water, the energy, all the resources at the global scale that are going to be wasted. And we all know that we live in one planet and resources are now shortening every single day. So now we want to invite on stage with us another expert always coming from Australia, that is a scientist, a researcher. She is Caterina Selva. She comes from the University of Adelaide, from the School of Agriculture. And we want to talk about this issue. We're going to talk about this issue all day long during our virtual marathon, because we know that it's something that we should tackle everywhere and needs really a coral global effort to be fixed.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Caterina. Welcome, in this incredible journey that we are running all the way from Australia and around the world. So we want to learn more. What's your work? What are you doing? Because we know that you are running very interesting researches on this topic. How Australia is tackling this issue?
Hi, thanks for introducing me. I've prepared a short presentation and I'm trying to share the screen. So let me know if you can see it.
Not yet. So while you are checking, so this is really something that we are very much focused on, because we know that the impact of food waste at the global scale is massive. Since last year, the Food and Agriculture Organization started to celebrate a day to create awareness at the global scale. And on September 29th, since last year, we started really trying to advocating with a global mutual voice to tackle this issue. The interesting aspect is that during the pandemic, at least from our research, we have been noticing that people started being much more focused on what they're wasting. And I think that one of the starting point is to start to be aware about the value of the product that we are daily wasting in our homes. On the other hand, also industries started really fixing this issue, because food loss that are happening at the industrial level can also count a lot in terms of impact. I don't know, Caterina, if everything is okay.
Yes, I think I managed to the video.
Perfect. Okay, let's go.
Okay, yeah, well, thanks again for the introduction. Okay, and thanks again for having me here as a speaker. And my name, as you said, is Caterina Selva, and I'm talking to you from Adelaide in Australia. And as you said, in the context of Food for Earth 2021, I would like to present the projects done by two very important research centres right here at the University of Adelaide, whose mission is to reduce unnecessary food waste in Australia. As you may be aware, we're living in an unprecedented situation. In a moment of history where the food production system, that is already struggling to keep up with the increasing global population, is undermined by extreme weather events due to climate change and a global pandemic that is aggravating these conditions. Data from 2018 shows that 11% of the world's population is undernourished, but this number rises even higher if we consider that 1 in 4 people worldwide is facing food insecurity, which means that they lack secure access to sufficient amounts of healthy foods, which is a condition that often goes unnoticed, highlighting how food production and management are key processes that need to be optimized if we want to avoid the longer-term medical and social impacts of malnutrition. At the same time, if we think of the food that we're actually able to produce, at least 1/4 of it is being wasted, more than 90% of which is coming from agriculture, with an important environmental cost. as 25% of all the water used in agriculture globally ends up in growing food that is ultimately thrown away, and even more sadly, food waste is responsible for at least 6% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. So it becomes quite clear that food waste is a worldwide issue that has significant economic and environmental costs, and that it needs to be addressed as it cannot be sustained. Regardless of the country, food waste happens at every step of the supply chain, whether it be foods that never leave the farm or food that is lost or damaged during the processing and distribution. But it also consists of the food that does not meet the market standards in terms of size, shape, or color, but also food that is wasted from households, usually when consumers buy more than what they eat and then throw away the excess. In Australia alone, food waste is costing the economy around $20 billion, with more than 7 million tons of food being wasted each year. At the moment, in Australia, there are three major uses for waste biomass from agriculture, as a small portion of it is burned to produce energy by combustion, or it is used either as composting material or as feed for animals, all of which represent low-profit products. But even with these alternative uses, 90% of the food waste still ends up in landfill, which means that we are throwing away a huge amount of valuable resources. So as a response to this problem, the Australian government has set an objective to reduce its food waste by 50% by 2030, in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. And two research projects or research centers that are involved in reaching this objective are the Agricultural Product Development and the Fight Food Waste. While the APD operates in South Australia and focuses on the early steps of the supply chain, Fight Food Waste addresses the entire chain across all of Australia. But despite these differences, the cornerstones of both these research initiatives can be summarized into three main concepts that are to reduce the food waste across the supply chain, for example, through increased food donations, transform the unavoidable waste into innovative products, and engage with the industry and the community to deliver behavioral change. In my case, as a molecular biologist, I'm involved in the transform aspect of the projects. But what do we actually mean by transform? It is a process that mainly consists of collecting the waste biomass, which is a complex mix of many substances, and then using laboratory techniques and industrial facilities to separate the individual components. The chemical properties of each substance can then be used to develop high-value products for marketing and return of investment to the producers. So the type of products that can be obtained greatly depend on the type of starting material, but some of the applications can really be quite surprising. For example, potatoes. They are the world's fourth largest food crop and a valuable resource for Australia. They mostly contain just water and starch, but the starch is present in many different forms, which means they can be used for different things. For example, in the creation of foods with a low glycemic index. But some forms can also be used in the production of bioplastics or compostable packaging materials, while others find use in cosmetics and in skincare products. Another example is from red fruits like cherries and apples, of which South Australia is a big producer. These fruits contain high levels of anthocyanins, which possess antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties, but they can also be used as colorants in the food and drink industry. Pectins can also be extracted and used in food as thickening agents and stabilizers, and the cellulose present in the fruit can be converted into high-strength material suitable for packaging and for biomedical applications, while the remaining biomass can be converted into bioethanol. As a last example, mushrooms are a good source of B and D vitamins and of important minerals like selenium, copper, and potassium. They also contain high levels of chitin, which is a carbohydrate that is increasingly used in natural skin and hair care products and in the pharmaceutical sector, as well as in the agrochemical field. With plenty of ideas in a field full of potential, what we're really aiming to achieve by 2030 is to maximize the value of food waste and build a circular economy while minimizing the environmental impact through 30 million tons of reduced food waste and distribution of 20 million kilos of rescued food, as well as savings in 44 million tons in greenhouse gas emissions and at least 87 billion liters in water through recovery and reuse. At the same time, a $2 billion increase in industry profits, with more than 5,000 jobs in circular economy, including graduation of 40 future leaders and about 250 industry people trained. What I showed today is only a small part of the amazing work done by these two research centers, which include many more projects and involve more than 70 participants, effectively creating a bridge between governments, universities, industry, and growers to fight food waste. Here you can find some of the participants taking part, but I would also like to thank my colleagues at the University of Adelaide, especially the research director, Professor Vincent Boulogne, the Future Food Institute and the FAO for organizing such a wonderful event about such crucial themes, and ARIA, the Association of Italian Researchers in Australasia, for providing the opportunities that brought me here. Once again, thanks for listening, and sorry for the technical mishaps, but feel free to contact me or my colleagues anytime if you wish to know more about the individual projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, because I think that within the longest lesson about how we can really fix the world issues related to food and the food system, this is something in which everyone can take a little action. And this is the best way to kickstart this very long journey. Thank you so much, Dr. Caterina Selva. And now, let's go on, because now that we have been learning how to tackle also this issue, we have been talking about the power of chefs, we have been talking about the crucial role of health and the relationship between food, health, and earth. Then we learned something on how we can tackle the food waste challenge, the food loss and waste challenge, which is the impact, the numbers that Dr. Caterina Selva has been sharing with us. And now I want to involve someone who's taking action. I want to involve here on stage with me Giulia Dalmadi, that is the leader of the Food and Climate Shapers Bootcamp of FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization e-Learning Academy, and the Future Food Institute. Because today, together with Giulia, we are going also to hear the voices of youth, of experts, of climate shapers that are implementing projects on the ground together with the community. And so, Giulia, this is the first time we're going to meet today. I know we have many other meetings around the world. Let's start with Australia.
Ciao, Sara. Thank you so much. What a day ahead of us. I had to think of last year when we went through this marathon already once together. I'm very excited. And for the audience, you can be sure that you will be fed with all the insights and inspiration from all over the world, how to take action towards a better food system. So my transformational journey started in 2018 with the Food Innovation Program. So I have been involved as a receiver and now as a deliverer of knowledge and tools and ideas how to equip the future workforce of our food system with the right capabilities to become resilient. And as we know from last year, it is very important that we are ready for change, we are ready to adapt, and we are ready to also switch to a rather preventive mode than responding to the situations and to the problems what are currently in our planet or our planet is facing. So exactly 10 days ago, we concluded the 7th bootcamp, Food and Climate Shaper Bootcamp, the third digital format actually. And I'm extremely grateful that we could involve now more than 150 participants from almost over 50 countries, both in digital and in-person activities. And our faculty is growing. So more than 200 industry experts, mentors, social entrepreneurs have been engaging with these young and not necessarily young, because our boot camps are literally for everyone. And this is very important, that finally we are not operating in silos and everyone is involved in the conversation. And I think with Future Food, you can really experience that over every project, and this involving also our educational programs. So for those who would like to get to know more about the Food and Climate Shaper Bootcamp, which is the joint project with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and Future Food, I welcome everyone to visit the futurefood.academy website to learn more. We have all of the dates for 2021 already published. If someone wants to join us in Italy, where Sara and the team is now also based in Pollica and in Marettimo, it's time to get those applications running. And we also have 2 more digital boot camps on the pipeline. I think what is very important that our educational programs it's not always the same. Why is that not always the same? Because always different people are involved, and peer-to-peer learning is involved in the process. And how we are learning from chefs, farmers, innovators, startuppers, NGOs, and researchers through local and global discoveries, it's very inspiring. And all of our boot camps concludes with a hackathon, which is this challenge-based learning experience. And this is how, or through these hackathons and the ideas what our climate shapers are creating on the boot camps, you will get to know some of our climate shapers. So now, without me taking too much time, I would like to invite on stage the first climate shaper, who is representing one of the winner teams from the winter bootcamp from 2020. So Rabih is with us and dialing in from Lebanon. I know that he will also shortly introduce his team. Hi, Rabih, how are you?
Hello, everyone. Good morning, and thank you
Wonderful
for having
to
us
see
here.
you.
It's a great honor to be here today for the Earth Day. And actually, I want to thank you so much for that digital bootcamp, where you are bringing all the people there from different background, different industries, and different countries. So we are actually applying the holistic thinking in action on one platform and the same hub, to be able to check the different challenges of the climate changing and how to be creative and innovative and putting solutions on the table and trying to push it forward. So thank you so much for this opportunity and for making this all happen together. Thank you.
Thank you. So your team also shows the diversity of the program, because your team members are actually based in New Zealand and Italy, and you are based in Lebanon. So would you like to maybe share a few words about them and also the projects what you will introduce very shortly?
So for us, for our team Food Planet, we were like in real time doing that experience. So having Lana Kenneth from New Zealand and Sylvia Passi from Italy and me as well from Lebanon, 3 different people from 3 different continents, and as well different ages and different industries. So we were making this equation happening in real time, and being there at the bootcamp, receiving all these informations and insights from people, from the top expert people in different industries, and doing that for a full month, and then doing that hackathon and having this spirit of challenge to have the best solution or the best practice that we can afford, and doing that by challenging a great talented people as well from like 54 different places in the world. So this was like a great milestone in my reinventing my career, because I'm moving from the construction throughout the agriculture and trying to make a certain impact in our life.
Exactly. So are we ready to show the result of your hackathon challenge?
Yes, please, if you can share that.
Let's do that. So the name of your team is Food Planet, if I'm not mistaken.
The minds.
Yeah, we just keep it like food plan for the presentation, and then
Okay.
we're gonna share the updates.
Wonderful.
Economic growth indicators to human and planet well-being. To understand this better, we did some research. We surveyed 137 people between the ages of 17 to 65, and we asked them this question. Interestingly, these people who are no longer at school, who are all of older generations, decided that school children and families were who they trusted the most to shape the planet's climate and well-being in the future. This made us question, is the current generation looking at youth to solve the problems of climate? And we thought, how might they be able to better work together? How might we facilitate intergenerational collaboration while delivering climate shaping education, as inspired by the work of the Future Food Institute? So what better way to do this to engage children and families than through games? So we developed Food Planet. It's an online platform for 8 to 13-year-olds and their families. It makes learning about how we can create a healthy food planet fun at home or school. We developed a prototype, and this game has activities that are based on our food system where the players can choose avatars, they gain prosperity or crisis points along the way, they gain badges, and they can even reach food hero status. We tested this prototype with some teachers and some kids, and we learned some things that we needed to integrate into our second iteration of our prototype. So we listened to what they had to say, and we came up with our second version, which was an online virtual reality game combined with an offline learning experience, which integrates tutorials of how to do real life activities in their own backyards, like micro gardening or cooking. And then they have an option to upload themselves filming or taking photos of them doing those activities onto the platform and share them with other families and on social media. Who is Food Planet for? It's for families, schools, and community programs. It's a way of getting families to compete with each other, allowing community after-school care programs to educate themselves about how we can create a better food system. And for schools, it's a way of teaching all topics using food as an instrument. Why does it work? Well, we know through gamification and competition that kids find this really exciting. So our badge and hero status is something that people are awarded as they move through the levels. It works because we're fully integrated into the core curriculum at schools using literacy and numeracy practices. And we also integrated the offline aspect of our prototype, so it's more like a real life climate shaping experience. Everything at Food Planet is driven by the SDGs. We use these to develop the virtual world and the offline activities so that we can build the capability of young people, their parents, and their families to become better climate shapers. Our landing page is in development and we're working behind the scenes so you can log in or sign up soon. We're a social enterprise model. We have 2 types of plans plus a buy one, give one plan, where people who are in a more generous position are able to buy a plan for schools or families in places where they might not be able to afford it themselves. Food Planet has big goals. We plan to reach 5 million users or 5 million climate shapers in 5 years. We know this is possible because we've seen other kids learning platforms do this. Not only will we be creating this learning platform, but we will also be using what profits we might make to fund real life micro gardening and circular food programs for children in developing countries. We can facilitate a shift in our food value chain to human and planet well-being.
Well, I'm very happy to see the presentation again. So Rabih, what happened since the 20th of December when you presented this idea?
Actually, based on the asking question that we have put in the market regarding the people, asking them what will be how we can make that change happen, and one of the main solution, and I think that there's like no one direct production line that to make that holistic change happening and make that impact there, but there is many points in the ecosystem that should be done. And we think that one of these, it's related to the changing behavior for the human regarding how we are consuming and why we are consuming that, and what is the energy, how much water we need to have this product there, how much electricity, and going on. So by targeting the new generation, by targeting the young children, and by facilitating for them those informations and concepts, so they will like, especially by using this offline toolkit, they will be like have more interference and more interactions with the real world, and what really it's needed to have this bowl of salad there, and what it's needed like to have this food on your table. So by doing that, we think that this will have like more impact on the behavior and on the consumption part for them. So actually, after delivering this presentation, we have worked for like 4 months until now, and what we really have like feedback from the market that it's not easy to make that happen. First of all, yes, and it's gonna cost like a certain serious amount of money. That's why, and especially regarding the application and how to deliver it and to maintain it. And this is why we are starting now to looking for partners regarding either the investment, either maybe they could be like a certain big school, international school, or local schools. We are searching for that in Lebanon, either in Italy and New Zealand, and we are checking how we can like collaborate for them to test that in the school in a smaller system, and to build up our scenarios of facilitation, because when you are dealing with kids, this is very sensitive. You should have like a very clean tutorial or information to be delivered the right way, and check the impact, and then maybe we're gonna take that to stretch it for another level. And at the same time, for me at least, and for Lana, we are still in the industry, because now she's working on a project related to, let's say, superfood or new type of production of food related to new protein. And as well for me, I'm continuing in the agriculture, and I'm trying to take that to the next level as well.
That's amazing. So this was a call out for investors, schools to collaborate and prototype with, and everyone who wants to get involved to bring this project to life. I'm very curious to see how this evolves. As you know, I believe education and communication is a crucial part to make our food system better. And you are addressing the generation who can actually take already action in a very early stage and understand the real value of food, what they are consuming. So thank you so much for being with us. As Sarah mentioned before, we will have other climate shapers also joining the live broadcast along the day from South America, from the US, and did I miss someone? I think no. So I'm very, very... Germany and South Africa. Sorry, look at me. I am getting confused between all these over 40 countries. I'm very happy to see that our climate shapers are staying engaged and active, and we can also have you part of different projects. And now I would like to ask Sarah to join us back on the screen to conclude the first session of our 24-hour marathon.
Mamma mia, if I'm thinking that this is just the first one and we have more than 30 sessions, here the sun still has to come up, it's still night. So it's going to be a very long journey. Thank you so much. The voice of climate shapers and food shapers is always very inspiring, because we are learning that we can do it. And we need really to transform our actions in something that is going to be every day more measurable and impactful. We need really to be accountable for the impacts we are making every single day. And this is very much needed.